Hi, my name is Ben Hilliard with Daedalus Productions, Inc. Today I'd love to show you how to assemble our self-assembled insert for Fantasy Flight's Merchant of Venus. What you will see is on each and every single piece there is a little letter etched into it to help us in the assembly process. The other tools you're going to want, or at least the ones I recommend, is you see here just some super glue. I really like this particular super glue because it's easy. It has these compression sides that make using the super glue very easy. I also like to use regular painter's tape. I use the painter's tape because of the adhesive level on it is fairly low, so it's not going to rip off any of the varnish that you'll see each of our pieces have. So the first step you're going to want to do is identify these etched letters. Here you see, I don't know if you can, but here you see that there is the letter A right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to make piles. After you've been able to divide everything out into its subsequent little piles, the best thing to do is to start with A, working all the way through till I. If you have any questions as you go through that I do not answer, please feel free to email me. I'd be happy to help you. But what I'll do from here on out is I will start and I will help you show you how to assemble A and then B and so on and so forth until we're completed. Some of these I'll just lay them out, others I will actually show you the full assembly depending on its complexity. But let's get started. Now what you see here is this is Group A. And Group A in the game is to hold the credits. It's a little nice tray that helps us as we play the game to just organize everything. What you'll see though, and I want to make sure we're cognizant of, is that in this section here for the 1,500 credit slots, it is a little bit bigger. So it will affect the rest of the pieces and their orientation as we assemble. If you don't, you'll get frustrated, so please follow along carefully. So what I like to do always first is I like to orient all the different pieces that I have. I lay them out, that way when I go to gluing them I know for a fact that they are set up correctly. Now in this piece you'll have the top piece, this end cap, and its counterpart. And then as you go through there's these little dividers. Now you'll see that there's two different types of dividers in this particular insert. This one has hooks on it and this one doesn't. These hooked ones, there's two of them, will be going to line up so that this piece and this piece hook into these different slots. So they will go in between the 5 and the 10 and the 50 and the 100. Now here, like I said, it's important for us to make sure this matches up. So I haven't glued anything yet, but I just want to make sure that these pieces will be lining up like I want them to. So that'll slide in there. Now what I'm looking for is right here. If I can pick this up for you. Is right there. I want to make sure it's lined up. You'll see if I pull this off now and flip it around, it'll still go on, but you can see we've got somewhat of a gap there. We're wanting to avoid that because it'll make an alignment, a bad alignment right around here. So we'll flip that back around so I remember the orientation of that. I'm then going to do the same to this other side with this guy here going on. Make sure you're careful, you don't want to break those hooks off. Once you're assembled, they are quite strong, but while assembling them they can possibly break off. You can see here I've got it reversed, so I want to pull it off again and flip it around. Make sure I'm nice and lined up there. Wonderful. Now I like to leave them on as I test these other pieces, these other side pieces as well, because what we're going to want to do is line those up as well in those slots there. They'll just snap on nicely. But you can see there I also have that one lined up in correctly as well. So we'll flip it around, make sure we're lined up. We've got the alignment. It doesn't need to go fully on because we're just testing. So double check that one more time. Good. Okay. So I'm just going to now pull these off. I'm going to now test this other one as well. Make sure I test my alignment. Oh, that might not be it. Ah, much better. Okay, so I'm just going to pull it straight off. Pull it straight off, lay it out, so I know when I'm gluing these, it'll just go straight in. Now these other tabs also, they just kind of lock in there. If you really want to be particular, what you can do, let me just get the lid off my glue here. You can glue here and here if you'd like. If you like the extra strength that does provide, that's okay, but I don't say it's necessary. You know, just a little bit more glue here, here. It's a brand new tube of super glue, so it does tend to pour out quickly. And that'll go on just like that. So I have glued a few of those, not all of them, but a few of them. Now here's another piece. I like to take just a nice little drop of glue. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here. And I like to put it just inside here. Just like that. Once again, lining it up, making sure I kept the same orientation as I put it on. That looks good. And we'll do the same here. Now here on this piece, once again, I always like to double check. Maybe I check too much, but it's so much easier than having to pull a piece off that I've already glued. So here I like to glue just these dots. I put one little dot on top and beneath this little notch. What this does is it helps me glue this side piece onto the tabs. The other thing I do is just these little tabs here, and you'll see this as I go through a lot of my assembly videos. I hit where it's going to touch the rest of the wood on this insert. Line it up. And the key is making sure you don't just push, so forcing it on will possibly break your insert, and you don't want to do that. Now, the only difference between these two pieces, the end caps to this particular section of the insert, is that this one is labeled both games. You'll find that in the Merchant of Venus insert, I have gone through and labeled each different compartment per which game you're going to need that tray. In this case, we'll need money and credits for both games. Others will say classic game only. So here what I'll do is I'll take a dot right there, get a dot right there, and right there, and on these tabs as well. A little bit of top, and that'll give us enough support for the long haul. Now again, the only thing you need to be kind of aware of here is that both games, making sure that is facing out. This is where I use the tape. It's kind of hard with these gloves on. Okay, I just need a little bit of tape, and I kind of put it down, the insert down flat, and I'm looking to kind of hold. I put my thumb on this end of the tape, that way I can get a nice good pull on the tape. And my goal is just to make sure that I have good support, and that helps the super glue really set in strong, because the last thing I want to have happen for you guys is as you're playing with these that a piece pops off. And then you have to come home, or if you're still at home you have to then grab some more glue, and let's just be honest, that's annoying. So I like to just kind of pull tight, like I said, a little pressure on one end of the tape, pull and then adhere. That gives me a nice good seam. Okay. You'll also see with the super glue versus wood glue, we do not have any glue that's bubbled over into the insert itself, so it looks very clean, quite nice. Again, here on this insert, on this piece, either side would be fine. However, what I like to do when possible is where I have that etched letter for you guys to assemble, I like to put that in when possible if I like the finish on that particular piece or that side of the piece more. It just hides that one little piece that is there for assembly versus aesthetics. And just be careful when you take this tape off after it's drying. Just take it off slowly. If you pull hard, you could pull some of your finish off of the wood. So, there you have it. The first section of the Merchant of Venus, all complete. Here we have section B. Now section B isn't nearly as complicated as section A. And sadly, section A isn't the most complicated either. What we're going to want to do is make sure, you'll see that there's cross patterns in the wood, and then you've also got the others. They cross each other, and you'll see why. But what I like to do is, like I said earlier, lay out my pieces, make sure I'm all set up. However, you'll see if I put this piece on this side, as I bring it in, that both games etching will be on the inside of the box. We don't want that. Okay, so I'll make sure that's placed face down. And what I'm looking for is making sure that these are going to be lining up. If this, for example, is like this, we're going to be in trouble. Okay, will be one of our center pieces. Most likely, I believe it'll be that one. What we have here is a nice slot. Then we've got another slot piece. Now, one thing to be careful of is as you are about to assemble this, it's nice to just kind of, no glue, kind of like we did with section A, is just assemble it and make sure it's all lining up nice. Because it's so much easier to deal with problems on this end versus before we've glued them. Okay, now here, there's that, and that will then stick in there. This particular cut, I've got a flaw in my design which I'll be fixing, but yours will actually have a tab on the bottom here, and this will be flat. So please don't feel like you should be concerned if yours is deviating a little bit from the design I'm assembling right now. Now, another thing you want to do is just make sure that the distance from here to here to the middle of the tab and here to here, sometimes that will be different depending on the design, but for this one I believe we're just going to be just fine with it. So we're assembling that, making sure that we're all set. Everything looks like it's lining up just fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these out, and like I said, I'm going to orient them so that I remember how they go in. I don't want to mix them up after I've gone through the work to make sure everything's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble the guts first. Now here you have to be a little bit careful, because when you're dealing with tabs on the bottom of this, they are going to want to lock in place before you really want them to. Okay, and what I mean by that is if I put this all the way down in right now, I'm not going to be able to get this piece. Remember my tab, you can see it got cut off accidentally because of my artwork. Okay, it's not going to be able to get in if I've already placed these in. So right now you'll see I've just kind of got it sitting on top. I'm just going to take a little bit of glue on this one, right on the center post. Make sure you don't glue here, just these center ones. Okay, and I'll put it right there, attaching it. Again, not pushing it down inside the art. I'm going to pick the whole thing up just like that, and so I can glue right here. Now also, if you're not really caring too much for an invincible amount of strength, you actually won't even need to glue any of this. The side pieces will hold sufficiently. Oh, lost that piece, not a problem. Okay, there we are. I'm just going to pull them in so I have some tension to help me drop it in place. I'm going to line everything up and then simultaneously push the whole thing down. That way I've got a nice fit, everything looks good, and it works great. So, next step is I want to glue the tops of these side pieces. This tab here, this tab here, and then also all the different teeth here. That'll adhere it nicely to the bottom of the box. Just in case you're worried I'm going to go through this much detail on every insert, or every section of this insert, don't worry. We're going to speed up here in a second after you kind of got the basics. And once again, just remember that our main goal with these side pieces is making sure that both games here is on the outside. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to tape it because I really don't want all that work to come apart on me. Once again, holding the tape, pulling down, and adhering. Now the next step is we've got these other pieces here. Now you don't really need to worry too much about making sure you glue the right side on those center pieces, but on these little guys you will. Just remember that this little tooth goes out. Again, this little tooth goes out. So what I'm going to want to do is I'm just going to glue a dot on top of all these little teeth here. That way we've got good support. Because they are small pieces, they will tend to sometimes kind of have a tendency to pop off as the game gets going, as people start pulling cards, because this is a card tray. So you'll just want to make sure you really do get a good, perfect amount of glue. So not too much, but not too little at the same time. You're looking to just get these on nicely. Once again, make sure you pick this straight up. I can't tell you how many times I have glued the wrong side of these pieces and then I'm looking for a rag and it's just not fun. It also doesn't give you a good finish on the outside of that. Now that you will want to tape. Well, let me just try and get this other side. Because these little guys on the corner, after glued, they're quite strong, but before they're glued, they don't hold in there all that well. Just due to their size. So taping these guys isn't too rough. And I just kind of start right here, pulling down fast. The only problem is you do not want to just put one piece of tape on these. I'm actually going to show you that just using a big piece. I put it straight across the top, pulling both down, and then I will pinch that. And what that'll do is that'll make sure I'm glued tight up on top and on bottom. There we have it. Now all we need to do is this last little piece. So make sure we're lined up. See which side you like best. I think I kind of like this back side a little better, so I'll glue the opposite side here. Again, I just want to say, if any of you are watching this thinking, hey, this is beyond my skills, we do offer these inserts assembled. They do cost a little bit more, but if self-assemble is just not your thing, we still can take care of you. And there you have it. That's section B. So here's section C. Again, what you want to do is just lay it out. So there's our C. Now just know there are two different sizes of this kind of same shape. These bigger ones will be up top here, and these little ones will be down there. Okay, once again we've got kind of this insert middle tab thing here. Okay. So what we'll do, actually I'll just glue this piece. Put a little glue there. Top, middle, two dots. Then these side pieces. Before I do the other end here, I'm going to flip and tape. Yeah, just a little bit of support across the top there, just for good measure. Here we are with section D. Again, there's our piece we want to make sure we're good with. This loop goes with demand tokens. Yep. Wonderful. Just looking to make sure that I'm lining up this with this, this, and this, these holes. So pick that piece up, slide them together. Don't necessarily need to push them in. This sits here. Once again, I'm not going to glue these because the side panels really do hold them pretty well. If in the future they pop off on you, I'd pull it all apart and glue it all down nice and strong so it doesn't happen, but I have not had personally any issues yet. So I'm going to glue here. Flipping it upside down and taping. Now here's E. Now E's a little tricky. So if you're wanting to make sure this all fits together the first time for yourself, make sure you watch this section of the video. You'll see that there was no E etched onto the cover plate. Mostly because I didn't want it to have an E on it all the time as you played. It might become confusing. So you'll see on the cover plate though what happens during each turn, pending on the game. So if you're playing the new standard version, there's also the merchant spaceport phase, and then also the other 3 phases which are common in both games. Also, what does standard game setup look like and classic game setup look like? It just kind of helps you get up to speed that much quicker. Now, so what you'll want to do, and this one gets, like I said, a little bit tricky, only because these pieces have to orient the correct way so that it locks in all of the different chip trays correctly. So what we're going to do, you'll see on these particular pieces, you can see I should have marked them a little differently, but I didn't. This is a wide edge here, this gap right here. It's wider than this guy. Now you'll have 2 small gaps and 2 large gap pieces. The large gap pieces go to these center holes, and these narrow ones are the end. Now what we want to make sure is as we put this together, you will see that this piece, as it locks into, you can see I'm going into the second one, the slot that's cut out a little bit further. As I put them in, and if you hold it flat, this piece flat, this longer piece will sit at a slant. We want this slant to go away from the top of the words on this tray. So it'll sit underneath just like that. Now be careful, make sure that as you put these pieces on, that they do both lock in correctly. I don't know if that helps with the view on the camera, but so I haven't glued anything yet, but I'm about to. I don't need to worry about any of the other pieces at this point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the tops of these, and that's it. Now for me, I just like to always make sure I look at that slope heading towards my right. If you're watching, it's probably to the left, but then just kind of add this right on top. I didn't even really flip it over until I have that locked in place, because I do not want to mess that up. If you get that wrong, your tray will always be upside down. and you're just not going to want that. Okay, so I'm looking to make sure that that's all nice and snug. If you're really serious about making this thing last, I would just sit here and hold it. Hold it for about a 20 count. Count to 20 and you should be good to go. I'm holding this out of the camera's view. Okay, and that'll help the glue just set. It does dry very quickly. If you're really serious, what you can do, because this will be mostly covered, is take your super glue and kind of like caulk, you can feed it right into that crack. As I'm going over these other times, I'm not actually dispensing any glue. I'm just trying to work it down into that crack. Doing a little bit there and there. That just kind of gives it that little bit more strength. Now next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get inside of these little teeth here. Now here's where you got to be careful. You can see that there are two different widths of these two posts. Now the key is make sure you have the shorter of them go away from the slope. So if the slope's coming up like mine to my left, I'm going to put the shorter of the two to the right. Now I want to make sure though, when you put it in, make sure these, just the side with just 2 notches versus the side with 6, I want the ones with 2 notches facing towards this piece here. I got some ash falling off on me. Okay, I'm just going to glue again here, here for good measure. Either way, it doesn't matter on this piece. Okay, that'll lock in nice there. Now for this piece here, the wider of the two, it will go underneath the slope. So the slope will kind of crest it. Just like that. If you do not put those correct, you will not be able to get the lid on nicely. So now what we want to do is get these end caps on. So what I'm going to have is I'm going to glue right here. I will also then just double check, make sure that this is actually going to go on. So make sure this line is facing the same as your sloped line. I'll glue the inside of here as well, and just the top, and then also just these teeth. Now here you're going to want some glue. The rest of the places, some tape, not glue, you've already glued it. The rest of the places, it's kind of just hard to use tape, only because of the way it's built. That's why I said just hold those first pieces. And there you have it. Once again, making sure that your slope is heading in the same direction as your text. And there's E. And here's F and G. Now they're identical, so I'm only going to assemble one of them on the video. I'll slide G's parts aside. This guy might look a little intimidating, but I promise it's not. So what you want to do is identify the side that you like the stain work on the best. I got kind of burned tips on this one, so I'm going to flip it over. And what I want to do is I take these pieces here and I slide them together. If you'd like to glue them, you can put a drop of glue right in the back if you'd like, or just on the top here. I personally don't. I like that they can move a hair, and you'll see why after we're fully assembled, but helps so it doesn't warp or pin because of inaccurate placement. Oops, I put that one upside down. we go. So they're all just kind of sitting there nice. Next is I take this piece, and I just kind of work it so that it slides right into the backs of all those other pieces. Now here, don't push too hard, just work them in nice and slow, be patient. If you just push, you may break something. Okay, so nice and gentle there. Actually, I don't like the top, there's some scorch on that, so I'm going to flip it over. Much nicer. Wonderful. Now here on this piece, I would recommend doing a little bit of gluing. Okay, not a ton, you don't need to go overboard. I'm just going to hit kind of the one side of this tooth all the way down. And I kind of got scorched there, so I'm going to make sure that's on the back. Scorch was only because I didn't get the air on fast enough for this particular insert. Hopefully yours does not have the same issue. Okay, now that does not snap in very hard, but it's okay because these end pieces will hold it on. Just be careful again. Classic game, I want that text out and shown. So I'm going to measure, line it up, that's my piece. Glue the back side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue in front of this hole, behind this hole, a little bit in front of this hole, just a hair, right in the middle, underneath that hole, and on top of that hole. Don't go crazy with the glue, it's just those 6 dots. And then I take it, I line it up with this back piece, this back peg on that support piece, then holding that in place, I then identify and line up everything else. Because you remember we just slid it all into these brackets, so they do move a little bit. Make sure again you do not force these pieces on. There we go. Took a little bit of working it, making sure all the pieces lined up nice, but it's on. I just kind of glue it, and I kind of like to poke a little bit into so I can grab those tabs a little bit. Pulling tight. Doesn't necessarily need to be flush, and it sure doesn't need to be pretty. It's just temporary. That'll hold that end on nice. I kind of sit there and I rub it down, putting it down on the table. Now, I measure, okay? F will be out on this. Flip it, and the 6 dots again. Super glue on my gloves. Never a good sign. Once again, I put my thumb on the back here, and then I just make sure everything else lines in. If I had smashed, I would have broke that piece in half. And please note that if you do break anything on assembly, shoot us an email, and we'd be happy to see if we can't replace it for you. Shoot us an email with a picture of the part and the name of the game insert that it goes with, and we'll be able to take care of it. Okay, there you have it. Sits nice and flat. That'll be on top, and that's the classic tray for the factory tokens and also some of the other classic game goods. Okay, and that is how you then assemble F and G. Now here you see H. Now H I'm not actually going to glue for you because I think you guys are pretty good now. Okay, just remember the only tricky part here, and it's not really that tricky anymore, both games we want that text out, so when we place it on the table, we're going to place it down. Other side, figure out which side of the varnish you like, put it there. Great. Oop, we got some ash there. Okay, they glue up, and they make a box that looks just like this. Make sure you tape it nice and strong so that these joints do hold up. This one does, just because of its size, it is a little bit tricky to assemble. So I would personally glue everything and then put it all together. These end pieces will hold and support these side pieces, or letter H. Okay, letter I. Once again, this is another both game tray. Make sure that you're lining up your crosshairs. That is the only thing you do not want to get wrong. There's our center piece. And you can identify them basically because of the number of teeth on the bottom here. Okay. Okay, once again, make sure you get the center built first, and then everything else will fall into place for you. Okay, once you can see, that's not going to fly. It's just not going to work for us. So flip it, make sure that it'll fit. Make sure that it lines up correctly. Now this one's nice because our both games words have to go on this side. They won't even go on this side, so you'll be just fine. Yep, there we go. Glue, tape, you're good to go. There you have it. Okay, so here what we have is both J and L. Okay, don't worry, I'm not going to skip K. We'll get to K. But they are identical, J and L. So I will show you how to assemble J, and you'll be able to use that same logic for L. What we're going to want to do is, let's divide out, separate everything so you can see it nice. Then we've got our end caps, once again here, both games. Okay, this is the major component to the Merchant of Venus case. There's our top piece. And then I've separated out these. You can identify these fairly easy due to their kind of hook, spiky piece on the end. Be careful, you don't want to break that off. But what we want to do is we want to first start with this piece. Okay? Please don't mistaken it for this piece that kind of has a cross built into it. We'll use that one later. This has more of just a T. So, the slot right underneath this hook is where we're going to place this. Okay? We're making sure that this slot, you see the cutoff, the perpendicular one to this bottom slot, it's going to point straight up to that hole. Okay, we're going to use one of these other pieces to slide up, and it'll lock this piece in place. But what I'm going to do is I hold the tray, and then I just kind of feed all of these supporting pieces, these middle trays here, onto the insert. I'll let gravity be my friend and help me in the assembly process. There we have it. Okay. Then flip it and set it down. And I believe it's this piece here. Okay. It's the one with it's a wider piece of the two. Just kind of be careful. You do not want to push it all the way down in on one of them and then try and zipper the others. Just barely put this one on and then work all the others and just slide them back and forth until they go into the slot, because you don't want to break any of these pieces. They are a little bit fragile, unassembled. But once you have them assembled, you shouldn't have a problem. Okay? And again, we're looking to make sure that, make sure my camera is focused on this right, they go up inside of those holes. Now you'll notice I haven't glued anything. Now if you really want to, you can glue these pieces. However, I haven't found a need. Due to the design, it locks them all in fairly nice. There you have it. So you can see we've locked that piece in. It won't come out. Okay? I'm now going to flip it back over. Having those two pieces kind of aligns everything for us to make everything else a little easier. Now you want your cross piece, or lowercase t if you prefer. Okay. Now here, what I do is I kind of just set it down, and you want to make sure you kind of work it in a little bit. Don't force this piece, but you just want to slowly work it until it slides down inside. These tabs are built in here. They don't lock in together like one of, say, these boxes tabs. They're there just to hold that supporting piece that we pushed in on this other in place so it doesn't slide out. We're then, to make sure that our new, the lowercase or cross piece doesn't leave, we're going to use the same logic, and we'll slide that in and lock our new piece in place as well. Okay, there you have that. And finally, we want this, the big piece. Okay, same thing. Just kind of make sure you work it all until it slides into place. Pushing down flat, sliding it up forward, on front. Okay, once again, these tabs are here to hold this piece, this locking piece, in place so it doesn't fall out on us. Okay. And there you have it. We'll then flip it over, and if you're concerned this is going to fall out, don't worry, we've got the end caps which lock that into place. Okay, our last piece we want to do, and if you want, you can take some glue and again just kind of tap like we did with that F piece. Just kind of put a dot on each of these tabs. Not necessary, but I know some people are glue happy, so we can satisfy their needs. Just check what piece of the varnish you like, and it sits right in those spikes, right up on top, just like that. Now this is the last piece, so don't worry about it, I haven't forgotten about it. But what we're going to want to do now is, you see this guy's kind of loose still. We need to lock him into place, or her if you prefer. Okay, so this, the both piece, this little box up in the top corner, this little hole, will go right into that very last piece we just put on. And it'll zip on just like that other piece. Now, the only thing you need to remember before you glue is that this tab here does not really meet the wood. So you don't want to glue the back side of this piece because it could give us issues, or just glue the back here, but don't put any glue on that flange there. Yeah, so we know the orientation. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to glue here just a little dot, then we're going to make a little bit of an L, so coming down from there and up. If you want, you can hit right in the middle there. We're not going to worry about there, like I said. You can come up on in the front of this, because this is this tab here. It's coming right here, so just probably 2-3 millimeters is all you want. Don't go out any further, or that'll get you in trouble later. Okay, glue that, and then that's our tab there, so we can go out probably about 1 centimeter. And if you're in America like me, that's 1/4 of an inch. Perfect. Once again, you just kind of hold and work your way down. Don't try and push it all down at once. Find one section, that'll help you align all the other tabs to fall into their place. Okay? Don't worry about taping it really quite yet, unless it's going to take you a while to put on the other piece. In that case, you do. So once again, line this up. Then we're doing the same thing. For 1/4 of an inch, 1 centimeter of the glue. Flip it around. Again, on my left hand side there, Now this one shouldn't give you too much trouble. If it does, all you're looking to do is make sure your tabs are lining up. Don't push too hard, you will break something. If you're having issues, it's probably the front tab. Just work it a little bit and it'll lock in place for you. Now the last piece of this is our dear friend, the front gate or the front grill of this insert, of this tray. What you're going to want to do, either way works, either side, it's symmetrical. So you're going to want to glue here on the tab, then in between, kind of the middle post of that H, and then underneath the hole as well. So above, below, above, below. Whoa, that was a lot of glue. Just wanted to come out. Okay, flip that around. Once again, just kind of start on one end and zip your way down it. Okay, now we're to the taping part. This is where I prefer to just get a good sized piece. Starting right here on the front, I can go one tab in, okay, holding, pulling, wrapping across, and taping, because I'm really wanting to make sure I get all of those joints nice and tight as much as possible. Here I do the same. Once again, I'm getting about 6 to 8 inches of tape. Sorry, if you're a centimeter person, I can't do that much. I'm stuck in our old methods of inches, and if you ask me, it just doesn't make sense, but hey, whatever. It's what we know, well, that's what we'll use. Okay? Now, just for good measure, what you'll want to do, because we glued the backs of each of these prongs, what I like to do anyway, is I like to kind of push down and then pull and pinch. Now what that does, it gives me a little bit of force there to make sure that glue actually pulls back and secures. I'll then do it for all of the prongs. I know it seems a little bit overkill, but I'm kind of a better safe than sorry kind of guy when it comes to the front of this particular insert. There you have it. And that's the tray. And what you'll find is that F piece, once the tape's off, it works a lot better, but it'll sit right on top of there depending on which game you're playing. You'll use this tray for both games. This top tray, though, is just if you're playing the Classic. Now, last but not least, we have K. Okay, K is a fun one, though it does get a little bit tricky here, because you're going to want to make sure you have the right pieces. Okay, you'll see that we have 4 nearly identical, and I apologize that I did this. Now I'll try and fix it, so it might not even be a problem if you've got a later version of this insert. However, what you're going to want to do is match the centers, so the downward kind of tab on these, and make sure you match the 2 types that work. Okay, you'll see here I've kind of matched these. We'll see if I can't get you in up close here. Maybe if I use the background of my glove. You see, the one on your right is a hair smaller than the one on the left. That'll be important just for the sake, you don't want to have to trim anything, so just make sure you know that. Because these smaller pieces are for the caps of it, and the wider tabbed pieces are for the center. The last thing you want to do is glue one of the smaller tabs in there and then try and wedge that piece in, or take a razor blade and have to trim it or something. Just be aware of that beforehand and you shouldn't have a problem. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to get rid of cargo first. Okay, so we're going to take this side piece. Remember, standard game, we want it out. So I'm going to glue here, here, and then I'm also going to put 2 dots here. Oop, I might be running out of glue here. Oh, nope. Okay, on the end tabs there, on the bottom tab, we're going to glue this whole piece right now. What I want to do is make sure that cargo is, depending on which way you want it to face, it's your preference. And in right like that, I like to then kind of flip this guy so that everything's then facing up, and we'll hurry and glue this piece just like I did the other one. So all these tabs, just get them out of the way first. Dot, dot, top, bottom, top, bottom, flip, line up the bottoms first, should make it easier, then reach back here and grab that cargo tab. You may need to move it a little bit till it all slides into place. It's not too difficult, but it is a little bit different than the rest of our pieces here. So now these end pieces, the ones with the smaller tab on the bottom, and there you have it. Standard game only, cargo, then you got your market telegates and your fame and infamy tokens. And there's K. Okay, now after you've been able to go through and take off all the tape after it's dried, that's another nice thing about super glue, is it does dry quite quickly, far quicker than wood glue, which I used in the past. So the next step you need to do is go through your game, okay? Add it to the inserts. So you'll see here your player boards, and also please note that this is actually not the insert we just assembled. This is mine. It's kind of an alpha version, so you'll see, you know, for example, there's my first version of the cargos. They're down low, so we've made some improvements since I made my particular insert. But this next step on how to orient and put it in the box, that'll be just fine, okay, with mine. What you'll see here as you go through, let me move a few things out of the way here and show you this. You will go through and you will take and place all of the different chits in their particular spots. Sorry that this bottom tray does get a little bit less organized due to the nature of the design, but it is the only section of the insert that you may have any problems with, depending on how brutal you are with tossing your game around in the box. But you'll set up your different trays, okay? You see here that one's nice and tidy, okay? Either or tray can go on top of the other. Makes it quite nice. Your classic trays then will sit on top of those, okay, with your factory demand tokens, okay, and then your classic goods as well. Then what you will see is there's the tiering of the different tokens on the standard game tray, which then correspond to the angle of our lid piece here, and that's why it was so important. Okay, this lid piece, due to these different boards, will hold your factory goods in place and all of these different layers. So the only layer that's not necessarily having a good support is that bottom layer, which doesn't take too long to tweak if it's got jostled a little bit. But lid then goes right on top there. You can see works quite nice. Or at least I think it does. Okay, you then place this in the tray. Now, if I place it like that though, what happens is it has an open back. So what I like to do is make sure when I put this tray in, and I'm sorry that it's upside down to you guys, the camera, is I like to place it Actually, I'll spin it around so that the words read from top to bottom into the box. Okay, so classic, standard are up against the edge. This just helps lock in pieces on the back side using the box as a support. We'll then take the money. Money goes right in the middle. You'll then take this classic tray. It'll go in, and it corresponds to this both game tray with the dice, which will sit in there nicely. We then have the card tray, and then the standard game tray with the telegates and the infamy and the cargoes, which will sit in there. That'll create a nice flush layer. Then the player boards, and these cards here, and player tokens. I would actually recommend placing it in, whoops, there we go, this way. That way it gives us this nice solid wall here up against these tokens. If you put it in the box just like that, you shouldn't have a problem with any of these chits falling out at all. And just so you're aware, in the bottom of this box, I've got both sets of rules on the very bottom, then the game board, and then the insert. And there you have it. This is our insert, which we have made to be compatible with Fantasy Flight's version of Merchant of Venus. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you have any questions at all, please, please, please feel free to shoot us emails. If you've broken any pieces in the assembly process, please also shoot us an email with a picture and also the letter and game of the piece that you need, and we'll make sure we get you a replacement. Thank you so very much, and I hope you enjoy it.